You're listening to the Jersey Guys Podcast, the show that talks about hard rock, heavy metal, AOR, and West Coast music. In-depth conversation and special guests are always on tap, so settle in and turn it up. Now, here are your hosts, Tom and Mark.
Hey everybody, this is Mark from the Jersey Guys Podcast. Welcome to a brand new episode. Today, Tom and I talk with Charlie Calv from the band Angel, and we get all the updates on Angel, what's going on with the band these days, and we also talk to Charlie about his early career when he was involved in a band named Shotgun Symphony. The band released 4 albums back in the 1990s, and we talk about other projects that Charlie's done over the years, and also we talk about a brand new venture that Charlie's been in the last couple of years with a record label named Deco Entertainment. So there's a lot of stuff we cover in this episode. It was a good one. We really enjoyed it, and we hope you guys do too, so let's get right to it. Hey everybody, this is Mark Ballo. Welcome to the Jersey Guys Podcast. I'm here as always with my co-host Tom Coyne, and today we've got our special guest Charlie Calv from Angel. How you doing, Charlie?
Mark, great to hear from you, man. I'm glad you made it out to the show last week. Sorry I missed you.
But how you doing in this crazy world of the last year and a half? How's things going with you?
Good. I've actually been really busy, not playing, unfortunately. I mean, we put the you should call it the Angel reunion record out towards the end of 2019. Had a big year planned for 2020. You're going to come back through North America. I think we had some of the UK European stuff booked. We had Japan booked. We had Australia booked, and then it just stopped. The record kind of came out. I mean, it was well received, and we're really hoping to tour, pretty extensively for it. And the only thing we really got to do, we went out and we did the Rock Legends Cruise, which was, I think, the end of February, beginning of March, and we literally got back from that, and that's when everything got shut down.
Yeah.
So that was the extent of that.
Wow. Well, I have to say, basically, congratulations on Risen, the new Angel album, because it seems the last year and a half didn't really exist, so we're going to consider that to be a brand new release still.
No, thank you. Yeah, I was obviously real excited to do it. I think it came out really good. I think it was very well received. Obviously, we're playing a couple of the tunes in the live show now. Being that so much time has gone by, we've actually already finished another record, which will be out next year.
Well, I wanted to get to that in a few questions for sure, because I was going to ask you about that. What's it like? I mean, you guys played 2 weeks ago in Jersey. You did a date in Pennsylvania, and I think you have, 2 shows coming up in Illinois next week? So how's it been getting back to playing shows again?
It's great. We actually, hadn't played together, since we got off the cruise. And I actually hadn't even seen Frank, I think. Well, we did a photo shoot for the new album, but other than that, we hadn't gotten a room together since then. So we got together at a place we rehearse here in Jersey, and we just got together 2-3 days rehearsal, put the set together, and it was great to get back out there. It was a little weird because a lot of time had gone by, and usually I'm pretty good remembering stuff, but I was kind of brushing up on the stuff the day before rehearsal, and I was kind of holy shit, I really got to brush up on this stuff. Some of the stuff completely left my memory banks. But, once you got back in there, it was fun. And I thought the shows were great. I thought they were well received. It's obviously great to get back out there and play.
Yeah, definitely. I thought the show was great. Well, talking about you mentioned about the new album. Can you tell us a little bit about that, when that's going to come out and anything about that?
I'm guessing February or March at this point. Originally, we were trying to get it done quick enough to get it out this year, but it just didn't happen.
Yeah,
we had a couple delays with finishing the recording and the mixing just because of the situation, with COVID and everything. But it is done. There's 14 songs on it. I cannot reveal the album title yet. There's some cool stuff. We got, like I said, there's 14 tracks, all kind of very different. There's a couple tracks I would probably say, and liken it to, Hell of a Band and the first record. One tune in particular that I think is going to open the record is probably very, I don't want to say like the Tower, but kind of reminiscent of that, which is something I don't think they kind of have revisited since then. Then there's some more stuff you probably wouldn't expect. We have a couple of really good tracks. We have some female background singers on. A little kind of, I don't want to say R&B, but just a little bit different. You know what? Like all the Angel records were always different.
Yeah.
And very diverse, and I think that carries on to the new record as well.
Yeah, definitely. I was talking with Tom about that earlier, just before we got on air here, and we were saying about how the albums, and the first album, and then as they went forward, each album was like different, and some got a little more poppier as they went further into the career there.
Yeah, definitely. By the time they got to Sinful, I mean that was a pretty polished record, and I like that. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. I mean that's kind of the stuff that I'm into. Although I love the first records too. I mean, I think. Greg's playing and stuff on the first couple records was just so erratic, for lack of a better word. I mean, the solos and stuff were just kind of all over the place. Very hard to try to learn and duplicate. Where as you got into like White Hot and Sinful, it got a little bit more polished. A little bit more of like what I'm about. Kind of like the bigger string sounds and a little more orchestrated than kind of the soloing stuff that was on the earlier records. They definitely progressed. I mean, from being more of like a progressive band to more of a pop kind of band. By the time
Yeah. Well, I always felt, Charlie, that the early Angel was one of the first American bands to really do what the British bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, King Crimson, Yes were doing, with the overblown keyboards and very dynamic, exaggerated, pompous arrangements.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, definitely. I think a lot of the UK fans are like so into those first two records.
Well, I am too.
And it's really cool stuff. I mean, I remember hearing the Tower and being like, "What the heck is that? Like, where is he pulling these sounds from?" And then stuff like The Fortune and the last time around we were doing Broken Dreams. And tracks like that, and they're the arrangements are interesting. And a lot of it, long time, very kind of epic sounding track.
Yeah, it to me, it's a monumental record, and they did change the sound along the way. I liked all the albums, but honestly, to me, they never did anything that topped the first one.
Just coming out of the box where it's just like, wow.
Yeah, for its time, it was really epic for its time, and it's dated tremendously well, that album.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I saw today, I was just reading I think it was on Facebook, maybe on the Angel Facebook page, that today, I think, is the 46th anniversary of the debut album release.
Is it really? Wow.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
Yeah. Oh, my God.
So I wanted to get to talk a little bit about the new album, Risen, which came out in 2019. But when I saw you guys 2 weeks ago, you did like 3 songs, I think, from the new album.
Yeah, we did. What we did? We did Under the Gun, We Were the Wild, and Slow Down.
Right. I thought Slow Down was great because I think, the album version and then live, you guys kind of got to expand it a little bit, and everybody kind of got to get a little bit of their parts in there, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a great tune. I mean, and that kind of the beginning of Slow Down kind of likens back to the first couple records. It's kind of got that riff, almost like Broken Dream starts. That kind of riff that starts it. But yeah, that's a great tune. I enjoy playing that. I enjoy playing all the stuff. It's nice to obviously play the new stuff because I actually played on it. So that's always extra fun.
I thought the track 1975 was pretty cool. It's got a real like cool vibe to it, and it's got, well, of course you get to get like a 2-minute kind of keyboard intro, right?
Yeah, I love doing that. I mean, Punky kind of came down and just said, obviously, don't do The Fortune, but just kind of think of that and come up with a really cool intro piece to the song he had in 1975. And yeah, I mean, I thought that came out great. I mean, I actually wound up mixing that intro myself here at my studio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love doing that. And I really tried to capture, the earlier Angel sound.
Yeah.
And that's probably my favorite track on the record, 1975. I think it's got a great vibe, and from start to finish. It's just really cool.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I was wondering, is that something you guys would ever consider doing live, or maybe it's a little hard to do? You got some of the female background vocals at points there.
I mean, I'd love to do it. The biggest disappointment I have from that record is we never got an opportunity to actually do a video. And I was really hoping that like 1975 would have been the big video, because we had some ideas of how, we would kind of, pay homage to the old, and then obviously with the new band and stuff. And we had some really cool concepts, but then it just, lockdown came and it just never happened.
Yeah. So going back to that, I mean, let's talk a little bit about how you got involved in the whole thing, because you originally started out playing on Punky's solo album in 2016, right? Fallen Angel.
Yes, exactly. And that was an interesting story as well, because I just done, far away from doing that, I did the Radio Exile record with Chandler Mogul. And Chandler just sent me an email one day, and he's like, "Hey, you ever hear this guy Punky Meadows' band Angel?" And I was like, "What? So what are you talking about?" So like that, at the time, it was like everyone wondered what happened to the guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, MIA from the music business for like 35 years. And he's like, "Yeah," he said, "I think I'm actually playing on a solo record that he's doing." I was like, "Oh my God." I said, "Well, congratulations, man. That's great." I said, "Of course I know who he is." And then like 10 minutes later, the light bulb went on in my head, and I emailed him back. I'm like, "Do they have a keyboard player?" And at the time, they actually did. They had somebody else that was going to do the record. And, I just said, "Throw my name out there. I'd definitely be interested." I think it'd definitely be up my alley, although I hadn't really heard any of the material yet. It was a couple days later, I got a call from the guys, and I think Danny was the first one I spoke with. Mm-hmm. And, we just kind of chatted, and, this about my history and, my liking of, obviously Greg Giuffre and Angel and stuff like that. And I'm trying to remember, I think he sent me a couple tracks. He said, "We're doing a record." He said, we kind of have someone in mind, but I'll send you 2 tracks if you can lay down some ideas. So he sent me over the 2 tracks, and obviously I got my fingers crossed, hoping that it's going to be good, because obviously I'm psyched and trying to commit myself to something that I've never heard before. And they sent me the Price You Pay and I think Straight Shooter. And I actually didn't even get a chance to work on them, and I got a call the next day, and they're like, "Hey, if you want the gig, it's yours." And I'm like, "Oh, cool."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then it was like, but then after that, I was like, "Okay, so we'll be up in 2 weeks. We're going to do the keyboard. Here's 17 songs to learn."
Yeah.
And I was, wow, whoa. I had about 2 weeks to kind of create parts and kind of, map out the songs a little bit. And then the next thing I know, I'm in the studio with Punky doing his solo record.
That's really a strong record. I can't say enough about it. I was really floored by it when I heard it. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. And I actually saw you guys with Mark, actually, when you played at BB King's.
The first show.
And when Felix Robinson played a couple of that was just a great show, and the songs came over so well. I thought Chandler did a great job on everything and on that set.
Yeah, that whole record was great, and like "A Price You Pay," I love. I mean, I just thought that was such a great song.
It is.
And there's a lot of other cool stuff on there too. And Punky's playing was great. It's like, to be gone and out of the business for so many years and just kind of come back with such a really good record and great playing. It just, it was awesome for him.
I thoroughly enjoyed that show. It exceeded all my expectations, and the record did too. I didn't expect the record to be that good. It had a lot of really strong songs on it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely happy with what we came up with for it.
Now, you guys toured a fair amount with that album, and then eventually things kind of led to where I know Frank put out his solo album right around the same time, right, as Punky, and then it sort of just kind of like almost melted into, Frank and Punky being back together, and you guys started doing the shows, Punky Meadows and Frank Domino of Angel, and then it just kind of, before it became full-blown Angel, right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much we were going to go back out again. I guess that was 2018. So we did all the Punky shows, and we were going to go back out again for Punky's record. We were scheduling some dates, and believe it or not, Chandler was just really booked up for the dates that we were trying to do, and we were just trying to figure out, okay, well, what do we do? Do we try to find another singer to sit in for Chandler to do these shows? And then, we had talked about it earlier of maybe doing something with Punky and Frank where, Punky would be playing and Frank would have his band, and at the end of the night they would come out and do some Angel songs. Because like you said, they both had just put solo records out. They both guested on each other's records. So kind of when this happened, they just kind of made the phone call to Frank and try to figure out, what the next step would be. And then they kind of agreed to, basically use Punky's band and just, add Frank to it and just go out and just do a handful of shows. And that's all it was really supposed to be. But it went really well. So the next thing we added more dates here, going over to the UK, because Angel never played the UK or Europe or anything. So obviously, they were anxious to get us over there, because they'd never seen the band. And like I mentioned earlier, the UK fans really loved those first couple records. So it turned into that, and it was pretty successful, and then we kept getting offered dates for the next year. And then, it kind of came to the point, I guess Punky and Frank were thinking of doing another solo record or doing a record together. And then obviously, there's always been the talks of an Angel reunion. So, and to be honest with you, I mean, all the guys were contacted. I know Greg and Barry and Felix and all those guys were contacted about doing a new record. What actually happened, I really don't know. I mean, I just know I was asked that, if Greg doesn't want to do it, would you be interested in doing it? And, of course, I said yes. And that went on for, many months of them going back and forth, I guess, trying to figure out what to do. And then, in the end, it was really just Punky and Frank. And I think, out of all the guys, they still really have the desire to get out there and play and do the whole thing. And I'm not speaking for the other guys because I really don't know the ins and outs of it, but, everyone has lives and different successes and different businesses, whatever. And I think that's kind of hard to walk away and hop in a van and travel around the country with a bunch of guys.
Sure. Yeah. Well, now going back to talking about Greg Giuffria, and obviously he was a big influence on you, right? So who, Greg, and who else were your influences for you personally as a keyboard player and a musician?
Oh, me, top four: Keith Emerson, Rick Wakeman, John Lord, and Greg Giuffria.
I could have guessed those four.
Tom smiling when he said that.
Yeah, top four. I mean, be honest, like Jeff Downs pulling a very close, right behind those guys. I always loved his playing. All that kind of stuff. Any of the Yes, Kansas Stick stuff. I mean, to be honest, a lot of people overlook Dennis DeYoung, and he's an amazing keyboard player.
Tremendous keyboard player. Yeah.
He really doesn't get the credit because he's always looked at as the songwriter and the singer. But it's like, geez, man, some of those parts. I remember hearing the message from Pieces of Eight when it came out, and just be like, oh my god, man.
Well, Steve Walsh also the same thing. Everybody associates Steve Walsh. Steve Walsh is a terrific keyboard player.
Oh my god! I mean, think about that. This guy's singing in the stratosphere. He's playing all these incredible keyboard parts. He's doing freaking handstands, and he's running around like a madman. Yep. And he just keeps going and going and going and going. It's like, wow. Yeah, I mean, those obviously, like I said, Greg was a big influence. I kind of got into Angel. I backed into them. I mean, I knew who they were in high school. And everyone talked about Punky Meadows' hair and all that kind of stuff. And I had the same kind of hair in high school, and friend of Punky or whatever. And obviously the Tower and stuff like that. But I really didn't get into them and really discover the rest of the catalog until the first Giuffria record came out. And actually, a friend of mine brought it over to me. He's like, "Oh, this is the guy from Angel," and I was like, "Oh, wow, this is awesome." And then kind of backed into the other records. I mean, I obviously. My friend from around the corner had White Hot and Sinful, because that's more of my, when I was growing up and what I was listening to. But kind of backed into discovering the other stuff and always loved Greg's playing. I mean, I love the Giuffria stuff. I love the House of Lords stuff he did. And that's kind of my style, that kind of, symphonic layering keyboard kind of thing, So it was easy for me to step into this.
Well, I've always maintained that Angel, I personally think would have gone over bigger had they stayed together through the 80s, because they really influenced so many bands in the 80s, because the 80s was, again, like a resurgence of the over-the-top theatrics and look. And had that band stayed together through the 80s, I think that they really could have been probably bigger than they ever were.
Oh yeah, I mean they were poised, for the MTV generation.
Correct.
I mean, come on, you got five, great looking guys.
Right. That's where I'm going with this. Yeah.
The whole image thing. I mean, think of what they're doing in the '70s with the stage show, and imagine what they could have done in the '80s.
Right. With no videos. I mean, even if you go on YouTube and look for Angel stuff, there's hardly anything.
Right.
for a band that was relatively big, because they were from that era where unless you were a super huge band, there wasn't that much accessible video. And that was a band that, as you just said, in 86, 87, 88, oh my God, Whitesnake would have had nothing on them.
No, they would have been huge, and they were a great band. They were great players. They were great songwriters.
Right.
And unfortunately, it just fell apart before all that happened. They kind of missed the boat on it, unfortunately.
And
But for
oddly
me,
enough, Jafria was the only guy that really was able to circumvent his career through the 80s. Like Punky kind of disappeared, so did Frank and the rest of the band, and Jafria did navigate his career pretty successfully up until, I guess, he got tired of doing it.
Yeah, well, I think, the first, the two Jafria records, did real well. The House of Lords records, maybe not as well, but things were starting to kind of change around that time. But yeah, he managed to keep the career going. Frank, I know Frank had did some stuff. I forgot. I think he played with Paul Raymond from UFO. They had done a project together.
Yes, yeah. I actually it only came out on Japanese CD. I have that.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. Felix went on to being White Lion. He plays on the first White Lion record, and that kind of that went south. So he kind of continued for a bit, and I really don't know what Barry did. I know Punky from just from knowing him now and talking all the time. He just got disgusted with the business and just came back east and just said the hell with it.
Yeah, no, that's what most people did. But Jafria had a good thing going with House of Wars, but I agree with you. As it got to around 90, 91-ish, 92, that's when I think he saw the handwriting on the walls with it and kind of left the music industry.
Yeah. He's we saw him when I've met him twice. Both times we were out in Vegas, and he is Mr. Vegas.
Yeah, no, so I've heard.
So he's made one hell of a career for himself in a different business.
Right.
Well, now getting back to your earlier days, because you kind of touched upon that a little bit when we were talking about your influences. But when I got to know you personally, and the band I got to know you through was the band Shotgun Symphony. Can you tell us a little bit about the band, the background, when you guys started, and stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. That was a fun band. That was probably, I'm trying to think, the record came out in '93, I believe.
Right. Yes.
I had played with Tracy the singer in a band prior to that, probably from I think like '88, '89 till like the beginning of the '90s. Just doing the circuit, and we actually kept pretty busy for an original band around here. And then that kind of fell apart, so we kind of put Shotgun Symphony together. Ed, the bass player, I had known since high school. I had my first high school band with Ed, and then we brought Mike and Ron on board, and that was great. I think what we managed to do as grunge was overtaking most of the music scene. We kind of found a home overseas,
Right.
where people kind of appreciated this music, and we actually went from kind of being complete nobodies to wind up putting a record out and being on tour in Europe. Like the first record came out, we toured. I think we did the first tour was about 2 months, 2.5 months. Then we went back and we did like an additional 3 months throughout Europe. We'd actually gone out with band Taiketo. We did 2 European tours with them. We did some stuff with Whitesnake over there, Crown of Thorns, and it was great. I thought that was a really good record. Unfortunately, the record, the way it came out, was really just the demos. We had intended to go back in and re-record that, and actually, in our opinion, make a record.
Yeah, I'd always heard that was basically the label at the time. Was it Now and Then? Just kind of approached you guys and was just like, let's just put it out as is, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like I think the catalog number was Now and Then #4. I think we were the 4th record they ever put out.
Oh wow!
Well, that was Mark Ashton, right?
That was Mark Ashton.
Yeah, an old friend of mine. I went to visit him in England in '96, and I used to write for a magazine he had called Boulevard.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And he sent me a copy of it. When I got it, I remember seeing. I was blown away by the music, but I hated the cover. It was like a black and white, almost looked like a Polaroid black and white picture of the band. on the front
Oh,
on the front cover of it. And then it subsequently came out in Japan with a much better cover, and actually rebought the CD just to get a better cover for it.
yeah, we begged them like after the first printing, and we're like, I think like I mean that's probably a collector's item because there was only 1,000 printed of the
Right,
black.
I still have it.
And which even I don't know if it happened to yours, but I don't know how they did the CD. But then like the writing started to like come off the CD itself. So
Yes. And I have the T-shirt also because Mark Ashton had printed T-shirts up, and he had sent me over the T-shirt, which was the same cover of the original album.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a fun time. I actually just reconnected with Mark recently. I mean, I hadn't really been in touch with him for years, but he was a huge believer in the band. I mean, looking back on things, he was a great guy. He really gave us a chance. He brought us over there to do what was called the Gods of AOR. It was the first time they did the festival over there, and I think people were pretty shocked by us. The record did really well. It went on to sell a lot of copies.
Yeah, it did.
Did very well in Japan, and then just like usual stuff that happens with bands. You get management and stuff, and other people get involved, and it gets pretty screwy. And I think if we would have stayed on track and did the right follow up to that first record, we would have done much better. But just politics and stuff get involved. We wound up leaving now and then, and in hindsight, probably not the right move because I remember talking to Mark, years after that because he had really good success with a band called 10 with this guy Gary Hughes.
Right.
And I remember having the conversation with Mark, and Mark was like that. He's like, that's was my intention with Shotgun 50. That's exactly what I wanted to do with you guys. But after he stopped working with us, he put all this attention to the 10, and they wound up, selling 100,000 records in Japan.
Well, 10 was a band that he really put together by like a lot of local British guys, and I'm not saying it to blow smoke up your ass, but honestly, Shotgun Symphony was a better band. You had a better singer. I don't know about a guitar player because I had Vinnie Burns, but you had a better singer, and I thought you had better songs than 10. And I know from talking to Mark all the time because I knew him really well. He loved you guys, and he did want to try to take you to like a bigger level. Yeah,
and like he had no problem getting us on the tours. The first couple of tours we did over there, very supportive. And then we wound up going back for the Sea of Desire record, the last one we did. We kind of went back to now
Right.
and then. But like at that point, it was kind of things had changed. You can't really we couldn't capture the fire we had going from the first record. Too much time kind of went by, and then obviously now and then fell apart. We tried a couple times. Mark, you've photographed us for a couple of the reunion shows and stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
So every once in a while we pop back out there and try to put it back together and do stuff, but it just never worked out. We could never get all the guys on the same page, to do something.
Now, what happened with, basically, and I was talking earlier with Tom about this because we were trying to put the timelines together for when we talked to you tonight. And, basically 93, the debut comes out. And then, what was it, 1997 that Forget the Rain came out?
It may have been that long. Yeah, I don't, probably 96. Because like the record came out in 93. We really didn't tour it till 94. So like all of 94 is pretty much spent on the road supporting that. And then we had the live record, I think may have been like 95 it would have come out.
Oh, yeah, the Live in London, right?
Yeah, and then I think like it's funny, but I got the tape sitting right in front of me because my old manager actually dropped them off not too long ago. So that could be a project in the future. I've got all the master tapes actually to Forget the Rain and that live record with a lot of stuff that didn't make the live record.
Oh,
so
wow.
It'd be nice to kind of revisit that. But yeah, so we kind of did the Forget the Rain thing. I think it was like 96, 97. And then by the time we got to On the Line of Fire and Sea of Desire, you're talking the end of the 90s already.
Sure, yeah. Well, it was quick. It kind of, On the Line of Fire followed up really quickly, right? Because Forget the Rain was strictly only a Japanese deal?
Yes. It was, and I think we had it distributed in Europe through some distributor or something. But because I think at that point in time we realized, in a sense, we made a mistake doing that record, and we wanted to try to follow it up quick with something to try to salvage what was left of the career and the fans that we had. And I thought On the Line of Fire was kind of cool. I thought it kind of bridged what we did Forget the Rain and kind of getting us back to the melodic roots. But it's just weird. It's like we can never seem to capture what we had on the first record, and sometimes I think when you try to run a band as a democracy and you got five guys all trying to get their input on there and giving everyone equal space to do their thing, sometimes it gets a little bit disjointed, as opposed to when you kind of have some main guys that run, there's some main songwriters that kind of keep the focus of a record. So I think if someone would have taken the reins a little bit more and maybe produced those last two a little more, they could have been stronger records.
So who was the culprit for the second record then?
That's an interesting story. We're actually, what happened was I don't know if we were rehearsing for the second tour. So we're staying in London. We were just talking about this recently. We're staying at because the guy Rich, who still texts for me, he's been with me since the Shotgun Symphony days. We were just actually talking about it because he was up here for the Angel shows last week. And we were actually staying at the Kensington Hilton in London. We were rehearsing for a headlining tour that we were doing in the UK. And we wound up staying at the same hotel with Steve Lukather was there, touring for his Candyman record. So we wound up hanging, every night. We both come back from rehearsals and we would keep the bar open until like 3-4 o'clock in the morning. And so Lukather was there and the guy, and actually one night Jeff Beck was there, which was a pretty amazing night. But anyway, so his live sound guy was this guy, Tom Fletcher, who actually produced Lukather's record. We got to talking and, he kind of liked what we were doing. He liked us as guys. He's like, we should try to work on a record together. So we kind of engaged Tom to do the second record. And mainly because he had worked with Yngwie, he worked with Dokken and bands, obviously similar to what we were trying to do. And then it just kind of went sideways. It was like we really started experimenting with stuff. And, Tom brought in a lot of influence of what was going on in the day. We had a lot of friends that were, I think his friend had produced a Filter record and a couple other records like that were coming out. So we really tried to push the envelope, but I think we really overly pushed the envelope. We kind of went off the fucking deep end. And, but when you have management and all this stuff going on, and a lot of money poured into that record. So by the time it was done, it's like we were so far in debt that it was kind of like we almost kind of had to put it out. And that's kind of how it happened. And I'm not, saying, we weren't along with it as well, because I thought some of the stuff was actually pretty cool. From an artistic standpoint and from a playing, musician standpoint, there's some really good playing on that record. And I think it would have even been a better record if when we got to mix it, we didn't kind of go over the top as well with like the way we mixed it. That's why as I'm actually staring at the tapes right now, it'd be nice to kind of go back in and give it like a really nice polished mix. Because I think a couple of the tracks like, Carousel, Broken Dreams, and My Escape, Waiting for the Sun, and a couple of the other tracks on there really could sound pretty cool. And I think they even got more diluted just because of the way people were mixing records, overly distorted vocals, overly distorted guitars, and all that kind of crap.
Well, I actually got to see you guys do it at Starland Ballroom.
No, Birch Hill.
Oh, Birch Hill.
Yeah.
Birch Hill.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, I thought it was really cool. I thought I thought we were onto something, but it just didn't happen, unfortunately.
Well, you talked about Carousel of Broken Dreams. I saw you guys, I think it was at the Stone Pony, maybe 96-ish, 95, I want to say. And I think you were doing that song, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was something we had started working on like right after the first record. There were actually a couple songs like, I'm trying to think of the name of the other one. It was originally called Time After Time, and it wound up being called Yesterday's Gone once it made it to the rain. But that we were playing in the set. The Line we were actually playing on the first Shotgun tour. That was in the set. Actually, I think Time After Time was in the set on the first tour. And believe it or not, On the Line of Fire that's originally My Escape, and somehow it turned into that song. I still don't know how we got there from the other one, but that's how that one. I mean, if you really dissect it, you can hear some of the similarities between the two.
Yeah. Well, now let's go to the final Shotgun Symphony album, which was Sea of Desire in 1999. And Tom and I think are both in agreement that was a great album, great songs.
Yeah, I think with that we'd finally figured out what we did good, and I thought "Sea of Desire" was a really good song. I thought the production was better on that.
Believe in Me was a great song.
Oh, sorry, yes, yes, "Believe in Me," and that actually goes back to that was written prior to the first record, and we had been playing that one, prior to releasing the first record. That's something we kind of went back and revisited because I always thought that was a really good song. So I thought that was really cool. I like doing that, the version of Eyes of Anger on that, and I thought was really cool.
That's a great
Uh,
song.
and I thought,
SOS, Dancing on Fire. That
yeah, yeah, Dance on Fire was really cool. And I really liked the way that came out. That was pretty creative.
So now the basically that's it for Shotgun Symphony. We're basically almost into 2000. And what did you do after Shotgun Symphony?
I had a bunch of kids. I mean,
I had one too.
that's basically, I mean, like 97, my first son was born. 99, my second son was born. And I just came to the reality of like, what the hell am I doing? And to be honest with you, I after Shotgun, actually, I wound up with Mike Mano from Shotgun Symphony. We had formed a band with fellow New Jersey and Russell Arcara from Prophet, and we started playing, writing songs, recording stuff, and we were actually being courted around by Michael Kaplan, who was running 550 Music, which was part of Sony at the time. So we were kind of really hoping something would have panned out with that.
Did you have a
And
name for the project or for the band?
at the time, it was called "Where's Mary," and we actually showcased for Michael once at someplace here in New Jersey, and then I think at SIR in New York a second time. He seemed real interested. He actually brought down Glenn Burtnick to work with us on writing songs. I remember Glenn coming down for a rehearsal, and then it kind of seemed like Michael was more interested in signing Russell as a solo artist. Which for me, I was like, dude, I said, take the deal. I said, these, I'm co-writer on all these songs. I don't care who makes it. I want someone to succeed. But he was very dedicated to the band, and he didn't want to do that. And I just started losing interest. I mean, especially after Shotgun Symphony, because that was pretty successful for us. I mean, we're on MTV. We're doing the tour bus. We're doing outdoor, festivals. We're doing nice sized theaters, and then kind of coming back and humping my own gear and playing in front of 5 people in some
Right.
club in New York. It's very disenchanting,
Sure.
and just kind of lost interest. I was just like, you know what, this I'm tired of following this. I'm done. And kind of, I mean, I didn't do much. And I did the Bronx Casket Company records with Dee Dee from Overkill, which was kind of cool. But that's like really the only sort of minor success stuff I had after Shotgun Symphony for a long period of time.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because when I think back to the timeline of you guys and when I got to know you, it was probably around 2010. I think I had reached out to you some way, somehow, I don't know, through social media or whatever at the time. But I was working for a website and I had this idea to kind of do like almost like a back in the day type of feature. And I reached out to you to kind of just talk about Shotgun Symphony, what you're doing now, what, the guys were doing. Do you still talk to anybody? Something like that. And it was really funny because we did an interview, right? And I think it was like literally a week or two later, you get contacted by Firefest to regroup the band and play again, right?
Yeah, and lucky for us, that's because Soraya canceled and backed out of it. So
Right. Yeah.
I think Kieran reached out to me. He was like, "What do you guys think about?" Yeah, you're right. We did. We just did the interview. Like, yeah, hey, what happened to these guys? And then a couple weeks later, it was like, "Hey, you guys want to come over here and play?" Which was good. I thought we played really well that night. I mean, I thought that went over really good. It was a lot of fun. And then there was the live record that came out of it.
Right. Yes.
Which I thought was a really good performance. It was a great time. I mean, I love those people. And Bruce Mee, who was one of the owners over at Now and Then, obviously he was doing the festival, and Sue and Phil Ashcroft, who were involved in Firefest. And I still see Sue every time I go over there. She comes out to see us when I was over there with Funky and Frank, and then when we were over there with Angel. So it's great. I mean, it's like these long-lasting relationships, man, which is really, really cool.
Now, then, I mean, that was really it. I mean, you just did the one show, right? And then that was kind of like just one and done, not really doing anything more with the band. And some more time goes by, and then was it
Yeah, we get the next phone call. Hey, you guys want to get back together again?
Right. Well, that was like what, 7 years later. I guess Andrew McNeese reached out to you and said, "Hey, let's do a box set."
Yeah, we started talking about that, and then he was doing his melodic rock fest outside of Chicago or wherever he was doing it for those couple of years, and he asked us to do that. So like, yeah, so I thought the box set was a really cool idea. It was great to go back in the studio with the guys, just to do the re-record of Carousel. It was the first time we had played together since Sea of Desire, so that was cool, and that got us back together with Alan Douches, who produced the first record. So we wanted to make it special. Like we said, let's go back and try to do like what we were supposed to do after the first record. And it was cool. I mean, that was a pretty massive project to try to pull all that stuff together and find those tapes and try to make it sound really good. And then, obviously Andrew asked us to do the show, and I forgot what year it was,
2017.
And that was fun too. That was a blast. It's always great to play with those guys.
I thought you guys sounded great. Especially a band that really had played 2 shows in the span of like 7 years.
Yeah, and literally like for both of those, it's really just like I think like 2 rehearsals and go. So it's not like there's a lot of time spent trying to make it sound good. It's just you kind of this it's like muscle memory. Once you get in there, it's just like okay, yeah, we can do this.
I thought the show was great. I was so glad that I got to see you guys back in 2017 at the Melodic Rock Fest show, because being such a huge fan, I got to see you guys in the 90s, in the early days of Shotgun, but getting to see you guys again, that was great. Like I said, the band I thought sounded great.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I really enjoyed it because we got to do Generation Clash, which I don't think we'd ever played before that show. And it's always something I wanted to do live. So I know we did that. My memory's getting better. I can't remember what else we did that night, but I thought there was some other cool stuff that we pulled out of the hat, though.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned a few minutes ago, you brought up the name Russell Acara, of course, from the legendary Jersey band Prophet. You did another project with Russell called The Way, right? And that was 2005 or 6?
Yeah, that was a cool thing. I mean, that kind of came from the band I was talking about. Like after that kind of split up, I'm trying to think how we even wound up doing that record.
That featured Stephen Diacutis, so Stevie D.
Yeah, Russell was working with Stevie, and I had worked with Russell before. And now I remember how this happened. I don't know if you remember a guy, Magnus Sodkvist, who ran a label called MPM.
Yes, I did. I know him very well.
Yeah, Magnus is a great guy. So I think he reached out because he was starting this label called Atenzia.
Correct.
And I think he just did Glenn Burtnick's new record. And they were trying to do stuff that's a little bit more modern. So I said, why don't we do this? I said, no, Stevie's working with Russell. I've got a bunch of songs with Russell. Why don't we combine like these songs together and put like a really cool project together? And that's what we did. And we had some great players. I know Near Z, the drummer, actually played with Genesis after Phil Collins left, and went on to play with Billy Squire and Chris Cornell and a bunch of other people. He played a couple tracks on it. Ron from Shotgun played some drums on it. Dave Halpern played a couple tracks on that. Billy Arico, who's obviously an angel with me now, he played a couple tracks on it. And I thought it was a pretty cool record. I mean, Stevie was really into making that record, so it really sounded good. I thought the songs were really good. I think the problem was it took so long to make that record, mainly because, I mean, Stevie was really putting a lot of detail into it, a lot of time into it, and obviously owning the studio and having to run the studio in between making, kind of his own record.
Yeah, well, he was like a jack of all trades, kind of like producer, engineer, guitar player, songwriter, right? You name it.
A lot of stuff with his
exactly. But what happened is that it took over a year to make and to finish. That by the time the record came out, I remember I'll never forget this, but actually Magnus flew over here. He had another band. They were showcasing for Universal or something. So we go into the city, me Stevie, and Russell to, I don't know if we had dinner or lunch with Magnus or whatever, because our record was ready to come out like a couple weeks later. And he kind of breaks the news to us that Atenzia just filed for bankruptcy. Huh. And it was pretty much done. And at the time, he thought he was doing us a favor. He said, "But we're going to put the record out first. You spent a lot of time, doing this, and we want to make sure it gets out there." Which, in hindsight, was the biggest mistake because it's like, why put a record out when there's no record company left? So, I mean, it kind of died the day it came out, and that was the end of that.
Well, now it's sort of got a new lease on life, right? Because we're going to get into this in a little bit, but you were involved or are involved now with a record label called Deco Entertainment, and you just reissued the Frequency of Spirit album from The Way, right?
Yeah, we did. We went back in, remastered it, and we pulled out a track, "Light in Your Eyes," that didn't make the first one. So we added that as a bonus track. So I thought it was kind of cool because I always thought it was a very overlooked record.
I
And
do
I
too.
thought,
I thought it was a great album with great songs.
yeah, and I thought like "Lost Among the Leaves" was a really great song, and I mean a lot of the stuff was great on that. "Soul, Earth, Sky" I thought was a really great song. The "All Right People" had a great riff on it that Stevie came up with, and yeah, I just thought it was a cool record. But it's just, I don't know, just people didn't get into it like I hoped they would.
Well, I think at that time, probably rock was a little bit dead, right? I mean,
What
it
year was that, right?
2005, 2006,
Yeah, it was kind of a rough period.
kind of a rough period there, right?
Yeah, I mean, we never did a gig in support of it or nothing because, to be honest, we were kind of bummed out. It's just like, you think you're onto something. And believe it or not, there was a pretty big budget for that record. I think that was the last, besides the Angel stuff now, like one of the last kind of semi-big budget records I had done.
So now, talk a little bit about Deco Entertainment. What is that label, and how did you get started in that?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. I mean, originally it was started by Alan Douches, going years back, probably not too long after we were working with him on the Shotgun Symphony stuff. I think he originally had started it. He did Glenn Burtnick's Palookaville record, which came out in the mid '90s. So that was kind of the initial Deco. And then when I kind of reconnected with Alan after working on the Shotgun Symphony box set, we stayed in touch. We talked about kind of resurrecting the label. So we did. It's been going on for about a little over 2 years now. I mean, Alan's not involved anymore, but he was involved when we first kind of relaunched it. It just really kind of took off. It was kind of like I think the first thing we did. I mean, I'm good friends with Ted Poley, so I reached out to Ted because I know he wanted to do his record that he had put out on vinyl, so I think that was the first thing that we did, and then we did, I think, Mike Tramp's record after that, and then we wound up doing Steve Walsh's record we were distributing, and it just kept going. We did Dave Bickler from Survivor, we did his record, and then it turned into, I forgot what we did after that, Electric Boys. We'd done that record. Then we did Donnie V's record, which actually did really well for us. I thought that was an amazing record that he did. Beautiful Things, I thought was a great song and a great album. And it just started taking off. I wound up, I've always had, in whatever band I was working in, whether it was Shotgun Symphony or The Way or whatever, I was always kind of the guy that understood the music business, where, I mean, a lot of musicians don't. So I kind of set up the whole thing, wound up getting distribution through Warner Brothers, who still distributes us now. And it just kind of turned into now a full-time, that's my full-time job.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It was running Deco Entertainment. And now we've got, let's see what we got coming up. We did, Albert Bouchard from Blue Oyster Cult. We did his Reimaginos record. We have Imaginos 2 that just came out last week. We got Imaginos 3 that he's working on. That'll be out next year. So we got actually, him and his brother Joe have an imprint label with Deco. So we do anything to do with them, goes through us. We got, 10 years after we picked up. We just did 2 records with them this year, and I think they're going to be working on a new record next year. I'm trying to think who else. It's a bunch of cool stuff. But we got the Guitar Zeus album. We're just doing the 25th anniversary of that. I think we just announced it this week. We just started the pre-sales on that, and that's a massive project we're doing with Carmine. It's 4 LPs, 3 CDs. Martin Popoff did the booklet for us. Nice Guitar Zeus story. We're interviewing a bunch of the guys and stuff. So that's an awesome project. And on a side note, you will be seeing a video that will be released for that, which I've had the pleasure to be in with Carmine and Tommy Thayer from Kiss and Tony Franklin and Kelly. That should probably be out within a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I mean, I'm obviously, Carmine is one of my all-time favorite drummers, so it's really cool to work with him. And then we're also doing Mark Stein from Vanilla Fudge. We're doing his new record that'll be coming out. We've got John Elefante. We'll be doing his new record, which will be out next year. And I'm trying to think when I don't have the roster in front of me, I leave off. Oh, and Tiffany, pop star Tiffany. We've got the re-record of I Think We're Alone Now. We put out earlier in the year, and we've got a deluxe edition of her Pieces of Me album that comes out in December, and then we'll have her new record next year. So just a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening. Everybody can check that out. It's Deco, Deko, entertainment.com, right?
Yeah, and I mean, come check out the site. There's a lot of cool artists, and we don't just do hard rock stuff. We do jazz stuff. We've got the Gil Evans Orchestra. If anyone knows who Gil Evans is, he was Miles Davis's musical director and piano player. So he's since passed, but his sons kind of keep that legacy going. So we have that. We have a great jazz guitarist, Brazilian jazz guitarist, Ricardo Grilli, one of our jazz artists. We do some hip hop. We've got the illegitimate son of Bootsy Collins, Drew Down, on the label. So it's very diverse. We have some younger acts. We got this great act from Jersey called Cold Weather Company. They're kind of an indie folk act that's really good. So we have some younger acts that we're developing, and then we have a bunch of the the older acts where we kind of give them a home to release new music.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a multimedia thing. We got a lot of other cool stuff going on. We've been doing some live streams. We partnered with this other company for that. We just had 10 Years After on last weekend. We've got another project I just did. I guested on Brothers in Arms with my friend Jack Frost. We've got a live stream with that.
I wanted to touch on that a little bit because that was one of the things I wanted to ask about. Who was involved in that? That just came out last month, right?
Yeah, that was basically Jack's, stay-at-home COVID project, and he asked me to contribute some songs and to play on it. And I just thought he got some really cool people. I mean, Andrew Freeman is on there. He sang 2 tracks. We did a video for that, Last to Know, which is myself, Andrew, Jack, Carl Wilcox from Diamond Head playing drums, and Alex Jansen, who's did some session work with the Scorpions and Hardline, played bass on the record. There's another track I think we're shooting a video for called Make You Mine, which I wrote with Keith St. John from Kingdom Come in Montreal. Another great singer. I mean, he really did a fantastic job on the record.
Yeah, Keith is great.
Yeah, and that's a cool track. I think we're shooting a video for that because Mick Mahan, who's the bass player at Pat Benatar, played on that, and Dave Amato from REO Speedwagon played the lead on that track.
Okay.
Which, he did a killer job. And then there's just a bunch of other great singers. Steve Overland from FM is on a track. Paul Shortino's on a track. Nick Walsh is on a track. Todd Poole is on a track. Jess Damon's on a track. So it's a pretty cool record. It was kind of just Jack's idea of just kind of wrangling up a bunch of guys who were sitting at home and putting a record together.
Yeah.
And just kind of creating a community for people to work together. And we're already talking about doing another one and maybe kind of keeping it as an ongoing thing with kind of a revolving door of guest players and singers and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Well, there's something else I wanted to talk about too before we finish up is your band, your project, Radio Exile. That album, the debut, came out back in 2015. What's going on with the band? I know you kind of were going to start on a second album.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I mean, we started the second album. There's 3 tracks completed, mixed and everything. 3 really good tracks, I think. We could just at the time never get the scheduling together. I mean, at the time, the guitar player Jimmy Lay, who plays with Dennis DeYoung, between all his dates with Dennis at the time, it was hard to get him to come in and do anything. And Chandler, who plays in a gazillion different things, we could just never connect really to finish the writing for the record. And then in the midst of that, we launched Deco Entertainment, which takes up 120 hours out of my week every week, and then you kind of add Angel into the mix, doing the dates with them and the records with them. To be honest, just cannot find the time, just can't find the time to work on it. So I don't know what we're gonna do. We've actually talked about maybe doing kind of a reissue of the first one, remixing a couple tracks, and adding these 3 new ones on it as kind of a bonus thing. I just don't think we'll ever get to finish another record, to be honest with you.
Wow. I enjoyed the debut album. I thought it had some really good songs on it. And I was looking forward. I did hear you actually did send me the 3 tracks from the new album, and I loved them. I thought they were even a step above than even the debut.
Yeah, I thought we were really cranking it out, and I mean, Kenny Aronson was great on the first record, but we brought in Michael Lapon to work on the second one, and obviously, what a great player he is, and I really thought we would really take it up a notch on the second one, and I don't know, I mean, it might still happen. I just saw Chandler last week. He came out to the show, so he always goofs around. When we finishing the record? When we finishing the record? So it'd be nice too. It's, to be honest, it's just really finding the time, and I don't want to do something and just kind of throw it together. But it's just difficult, even Jack with the Brothers in Arms things, finding the time to record the tracks for that. Sure. And then I just guested on Mark Mangold, another great keyboard player. I guested on his American Tears record, and he's doing a new record now, which is actually all keyboards. It's completely, besides the singing, all the instruments are keyboards. I just 3 or 4 tracks with him for that. But it's hard to find the time because you kind of got to get in that creative headspace too.
Sure. Well, it's got to be great to be busy again, right? I mean, you had, a period there you talked about in the later 90s, and now all of a sudden it's like you can't find time to do everything you wanted to.
It's crazy. And if you would have asked me like 10 years ago, to be honest with you, Mark, I thought I was done. I really thought I'd never kind of return into the business, like I am. And it's great because it's like every week something else opens up, and to work, even from the label standpoint, to be able to work with some of these, great artists is pretty cool, and to hear, I mean, I can tell you, like the John Elefante record, when people hear this, I mean, you think Kansas put out a good record, this thing is going to kill it. I mean, it's just, he's got a couple tracks that I keep telling him sounds more like Kansas than Kansas does these days.
Well, if you heard some of his Mastodon records, they're very much on the order of Kansas, and some of them are even better than Kansas records.
Yeah, one track on this new record is really good, and then we got reached out to by Kerry Libran as well, because he just did his Kerry's Cantata record, and he was looking to kind of expand the distribution on that. So I mean, we're here to really help artists out. No matter if it's a newer artist or an older artist. I think what a lot of guys have done, some of the older generation guys, they kind of self-release, but they don't realize, you don't necessarily need a record company. You need a team of people to help you, and that's what we're here to do. I mean, we have a staff of people. We have a full-time social media person. We have a full-time person that runs our website and does our digital marketing, and I think we do pretty well with these releases, and it just keeps on growing. We've got a couple things that aren't signed yet, but for next year, there's just going to be some really cool projects. We got one archival project that's just going to be massive. It's going to be really cool.
Let me ask you one question that as we're talking, because I've been listening to this and digesting it all. What would it take to bring back, in your opinion, hard rock bands as I knew them, and I'm sure you knew them, in the United States? Because I collect music from all over the world. I network with people all over the world. And hard rock / heavy metal, however you want to categorize it, melodic rock, is still fairly popular throughout the entire world, except in the United States. It's like a blank void. What, if anything, would be able to ever get that back on the map as we do it in the 70s and 80s and early 90s?
I don't know. I think the biggest problem, and this is from my experience from doing all the traveling and meeting the fans and stuff, is just the fans here just aren't as dedicated as the fans in the rest of the world. I mean, from the Shotgun Symphony standpoint, it's like, we only had a very short run, but every time I go back over there's people that come out. They're just diehard fans, and they'll follow you no matter what you're doing. And if you come to their country or city, state, whatever, they'll be there to support you. I just don't think you have that here. And if it's going to come back, obviously you got the mega bands. They're always going to sell out, But to be honest with you, they're retiring, they're dying off, or whatever.
We talk about this all the time. I mean, you're talking about there are heavy metal bands that are out there that are 70 years old, and my feeling with heavy metal and hard rock is, if you look at from the late 60s through the 70s, the 80s, even early 90s, all the great music was created by guys in their 20s. Hard rock and heavy metal wasn't really supposed to be made by guys in their 60s and 70s.
You're right. And unfortunately, it's like the younger metal bands, they're more in whether they're these math bands or whatever. I mean, bands like Dillinger Escape Plan and stuff like that. I mean, it's heavy, it's aggressive, but it's not the same. There's not the next Van Halen, there's not the next Bon Jovi for that matter. I mean, there's a couple of cool younger bands out there, and you just need the labels that are going to support them. We have these twin girls, a band called Dianthus, and I think they're really good. They're metal. I think they both play really well, and it's melodic. And we're trying to give them a chance. But the only way they're going to get a chance is if we can get them out and on a tour in front of a bigger audience. And for that stuff to come back, I mean, I think it's more the package tours and the festivals. Is the only thing keeping it alive now, and I think it's the only thing that'll keep it alive in the future. We've even talked internally. I'm talking about Deco here is trying to put something together. Along the lines, like what Mark Ashton did with the Gods of AOR or Firefest. It's like, what if we put together a couple of festivals where we can have all these acts on?
Right.
We actually met with an agency this week and some promoters about maybe doing something like that. Just to give it the opportunity to be heard. But then on the backside of that, you need the fans to come out and support it. And sometimes that's not as easy. I mean, Mark, you were there when Andrew did his thing and that we played at.
Right.
I mean, is maybe half filled.
Sure.
Yeah. And that could be the choice of bands because, bringing over bands that are popular in melodic rock in the United States is a little bit different than Europe. Like
Sure.
a band like FM being here, it's really cool because, I don't know if they've ever even been here.
No,
But,
I mean, for me as a longtime fan of that band, and the first time, probably the only time I'll ever get to see them.
yeah, so that's really cool. But like in the same respect, they're just not going to draw enough people here because not enough people know them.
Right.
But I think if you put together a nice combination of bands, and I had this conversation with Andrew. It's like, if you had FM and you also put like Firehouse on or Warrant or something like that, then you got a nice balance because you're going to have those bands that draw here, and then you're going to expose some of the fans here to some of the European bands that they may not be familiar with.
Yeah. Well, I think what wasn't, and I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, wasn't FM supposed to do an M3 show?
I don't know. I mean, they would be great at M3. I'm surprised they haven't done it unless it's just the expense of getting them here. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was. I always thought I heard that back a few years back.
I mean, M3 is a great example. I mean, that's a great festival. They got a lot of great bands. But see, I think they can expand. Like if the guys that did M3 would give some younger bands a chance, that's the way you can keep it alive. Get a couple of the younger bands that are influenced by some of these bands from the late 70s, 80s, and let them play.
Sure.
And give them a shot at getting in front of that audience because that audience is probably going to like what they're doing. But a lot of these festivals don't give those bands a chance.
Well, Charlie, this was a great conversation. I thought it was a really good talk. Really appreciate you taking the time to spend the last hour or so with us. Fill us in on all things from Angel and everything back in your career. I really do appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm surprised you're on for this long.
You get lost, you start talking about stuff and then you never know.
Well, that's it. I mean, but that's what you need, Mark and Tom. It's like it's music enthusiasts like you guys to kind of keep this stuff alive and keep it in front of people. It's about a community. I mean, if everyone kind of bands together and keeps this stuff alive, it'll keep going.
Definitely.
But yeah, you have to do it the right way, and you have to kind of be unique about it and do things that are a little bit different to keep people engaged. And like I said, I think it's just more of, the package tours, even for some of the older bands. When we were talking, Angel going out next year and the booking agency we might use and stuff like that, it's kind of like, why are we not taking out a younger band that's developing? And I mean younger, like you said, guys that are in their 20s.
Right.
Let them be exposed to that audience so they've got a shot at doing something. And even if it's 3 bands, let it be, Angel and Stars and an opening act in front that's young.
Yeah.
That likes doing this kind of music, and the audience would appreciate them. And I think a lot of that it's up to the promoters to see it, and it's up to the bands to kind of put their foot down and say, hey, we want to take out somebody new with us, and give somebody a shot.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not for the whole tour, maybe if it's by region, each region take out another nice young act.
Right.
Well, as you know, Charlie, it's testosterone-based music, hard rock, and what better group is the 20-year-olds to put it forth? I mean, and I mean that seriously. And I go back to what I said, that if you just sit back and really think about it, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Uriah Heep, I could go down the line. All their best records were created when they were in their 20s. And
Absolutely.
it says a lot now that I'm speaking in America, that we're sitting back worried about if Judas Priest is touring, if, Night Ranger is going to do another tour. And it's nothing against these guys personally. It's just that there's about 3 generations removed and there's no replacements for them. And that's alarming to me.
Exactly. And I think it's the responsibility two of the record companies. And I know a lot of these guys aren't even on labels anymore, but back in the day, a label would be, hey, we got another band. We're going to we want to develop this new band. So what do? You put it out with one of your successful bands, right? Because you're trying to sell records, you're trying to expose them to a new audience. Yeah, I was having this conversation with Mark Stein a couple of weeks ago when they, when Vanilla Fudge took out Led Zeppelin. And that was kind of the thing. Atlantic Records basically said, you're taking out Zeppelin. They're our new band, and we want to expose them, to a U.S. crowd. And that's what record companies did. And I think you kind of need more of that, just to keep it going. I mean, there's a huge gap between the guys in the 60s and 70s, and then there's none of these younger bands in their 20s or 30s.
There's 3 generations. Think about it. I mean, it was for the music that we love, and I mean, I've spoke to you enough tonight that I know you love the same things I do. The 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. We're now in the 2020s. It's a 30-year gap of consistent hard rock bands emanating out of the United States.
Yeah. And it's sad. There's actually another Jersey band we're looking at for Deco that are a bunch of young kids that are energetic and fun. So I'm hoping we wind up working with them and try to get them out on some tours. Because I mean that's the future of music. So if you're going to keep rock alive, you got to get some younger bands. And to be honest with you, I really can't even name any.
Well, there's a whole bunch of them out of Canada, and before the pandemic, there was a real budding scene in Williamsburg, Brooklyn / Queens, with a lot of metal clubs. And I was going down there on a regular basis. At the time, I still lived in Staten Island. And there was a whole bunch of terrific Canadian bands. Striker, Skullfist, Cauldron. But the pandemic has really done a number on all of these guys because they kind of lived on, they were making money by constantly touring overseas, right. And it's taken a bad toll on these guys. They all are in their 20s.
That's it. I'll have to check some of those bands out.
Yeah, there's actually one. When we go off the air, I wanted to talk to you about one of these bands that I think that you would really like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Currently, they actually had a semi-major deal, but lost it over the course of the pandemic.
You can't tour. I mean, that takes away the good chunk of your revenue. I mean, who really makes money on record sales these days, right?
Yeah, and these young guys that were out of Canada, they were really starting to pick up in Germany and Belgium, and they were getting their records signed on exclusive Japanese deals with bonus tracks. Kind of reminded me back like in the day in the late 80s. And
right.
They've all gotten submarined by the pandemic because they haven't been able to tour. They can't sell merch. They can't tour. So it's. But I think some of these bands you would really like. They're like very old school hard rock, heavy metal from the 80s. Not with great vocals and strong songs. Because I'm a vocals guy. To me, I don't sacrifice vocals. That's why I never got into thrash or death or grindcore. Vocals come first.
Yeah, you got to have a melody. I mean, what are you going to sing to, right?
Excellent. Well, you know what? Let's before we we'll close this off. We appreciate you, Charlie, taking the time here. If you want to hang a few minutes after we're done with this, we could talk a little bit about that. But again, just thank you so much for filling us in on all things going on in Charlie Calv's life. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, Mark, Tom, thanks, and for everyone, just look out for the Angel record. I hope it'll be out by March, and it'll be a cool record and a lot of touring next year. So
excellent.
Thanks,
that's
Charlie.
good news.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.